Well, let's close this episode out with one more team before we hold off until Wednesday and Friday for the rest of the Big 12. And that's going to be the Kansas Jayhawks. Jimmy's and Joe's voted them number 11. It was a really interesting season for Kansas last year. They're ranked in the preseason AP poll, coming off back-to-back bowl appearances. They win week 1. They get all the way up to number 19 in the AP poll, and then just absolute disaster strikes. They start 1-5, lost 5 straight after getting up to number 19 in the AP poll. But then at the end of the season, out of nowhere, they turn it around, go 4-2, and beat 3 top 20 teams. They ruined some playoff hopes in the process, and we're actually playing for a bowl game the last week of the season. So we got to see who we thought they were those last 6 weeks of the season. They were a tough out. They were playing consistent offense. And, it's hard to say that this is going to be – it's always hard to say when it's going to come down to one player, but Jalen Daniels feels like which version of him do we get? Is it pre-injuries from a couple years ago, or is it the guy that really struggled to find his footing going from Andy Kotelnicki to Jeff Grimes last year and really felt like he was forcing the ball a lot of times? I think whichever version of Jalen Daniels we get is going to determine how Kansas goes. And because of that, this is the biggest wild card team in the entire Big 12 for me.
I think I'm there with you. They could win 8-9 games, I think, relatively easily if they're clicking. They could also not make a bowl game like they failed to do last year because of Jalen Daniels and I think the running game on top of that, right? With Daniels, there were moments where it was like, okay, there's the Heisman caliber player that we've learned to know and love over these last couple of years. And then there would be times where he literally would throw it into like a pack of 3 defenders with no receiver in the area. I mean, that was just objectively the Jekyll and Hyde dance that he did last year. Career high 12 interceptions in 2024, and it sunk the Jayhawks season early on. Down the back half, you saw the heights of what Kansas could do. Now, they are going to have to go back to the drawing board a little bit when it comes to the rushing game. Devin Neal, Kansas's all-time leading rusher, gone to the NFL. They bring in LaShawn Williams from Iowa, who I think is a talented player, hadn't necessarily shown much in the black and gold, but he's probably the starter this year, and Daniel Highshaw Jr. is back as the backup running back as well. So, a nice 1-2 punch, I think, for the Jayhawks. They finished 13th in the country last year in rushing, and I think they're going to need to be a top 20 offense in order to hit that ceiling once again. We talked about Jalen Daniels and which version suits up for him. The defense is the other storyline. I need to see them take another step forward. They have 3 returning starters and a host of depth behind them along the line. And then I like the linebackers. They bring in Bengali Kamara from South Carolina, Joseph Sipp Jr. from Bowling Green, and then Trey Lathan from West Virginia. So it's 3 new faces, but it's 3 very talented faces and names that you might have heard from their previous stops as well. Secondary was an absolute liability. 103rd in the country in pass defense. That absolutely has to improve. But yeah, man, I mean, this is a team that has, I think, a lot of talent. And, for some people, the shine may have worn off on Lance Leipold. I'm not necessarily one of those people. I think that Kansas could absolutely find their place at 8-9 wins in a good season. If your expectation is Leipold leading Kansas to a Big 12 title, I don't know that you're ever going to be satisfied, certainly not on a consistent basis, but to find the slot where Kansas fits in the Big 12, very similar, I think, to how Iowa State has slotted in over these last few years, right? Very consistent, 7, 8, 9 wins, and then, lo and behold, last year they win double digits for the first time ever, and they go back to the Big 12 championship game. That's the kind of program that I think that Leipold can and is building in Lawrence.
I'm right there with you, and I'm higher on Kansas this year, taking a step forward, maybe getting to see what we thought we would see last year when they were ranked in the preseason, had a lot of hype coming in. And I think the thing that I'm most excited about is switching back to maybe a scheme that Jalen Daniels is more familiar with and more comfortable with, because like I said off the top of this preview, it was just really clear from the word go that the Jeff Grimes scheme, for whatever reason, was not clicking. He was seeing ghosts. He was throwing it into triple coverage, like you mentioned. They're going to Jim Zabrowski as the offensive coordinator. He's been Jalen Daniels' quarterback coach since the beginning of his time at Kansas. So this is going to be someone that he's more familiar with, calling plays, hopefully that's more tailored to his skill set rather than trying to force some things that maybe he wasn't good at. So I'm excited about that. They got some interesting pieces at wide receiver to help him out, even though they lost a bunch. But yeah, you mentioned the secondary. That they were that bad, and they're losing their 2 best players. So I'm really worried about that. You losing Melo and Kobe, man, like that's some all-stars right there. But I'm interested to see if they can get that turned around and just find some athletes. We've never accused Kansas of being a defensive juggernaut, but I think a big part of that could be getting a little bit more pressure on the passer. And I do like the defensive line. They have some nice pieces there. Dean Miller anchoring that defensive line could be just improved this year. And if they can get a little bit more pressure on the passer, I think that they'll be in better shape from that pass defense. Going over to the schedule, 7.5 over under. So Vegas is higher on the Jayhawks than most of these other teams. We're gonna get to see them in week 0 against Fresno State as they open up the remodeled Memorial Stadium there in Lawrence. So
that's the other thing. Off our road trip.
That's right. Yeah, we're kicking off our college football road trip. Go back and listen to that episode from June if you need to get hyped about some specific games. But we might have buried the lead there. It was also a weird situation from just a logistics standpoint last year, right? Like they're playing their home games in Kansas City. They're not even playing all their home games at the same stadium in Kansas City. Some are at the NFL stadium. Some are at the MLS stadium. You're thinking about you're practicing in one town and playing home games in another that's an hour or 2 away. That's weird too. Like that's some weird juju that might introduce on a football season. I don't know. So just another thing that's going to be back to normal this year for Kansas, playing their home games back in Lawrence. They go to Missouri in the renewal of the Border War. I'm really, really excited about that game. It's the first time that those 2 programs have faced off since 2011. And it's a hated rivalry that can get really heated at times. So I'm really excited about that one. You look at the conference schedule, it opens up really nicely. I think there's a really good chance that they start 3-0 in conference play. They get West Virginia at home, Cincinnati, who I am high on, but they do get them in Lawrence. And then they go to UCF that's rebuilding down there under Scott Frost. Then they go to Lubbock. That's going to be a tough one to win, of course. Off a bye, it's Kansas State at home, a game that they haven't won in quite some time. But if they can rebound from those 2 games, there's an opportunity to close really strong with Oklahoma State, Arizona, and Iowa State on the road, and then Utah at home to close it out. So I like how the schedule sets up. I think there's some real opportunities for a runway to build some momentum. And, we could see an 8 or 9 win Kansas. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility this year.
Yeah, I lean toward Kansas hitting the over here. I wrote that I still believe in Leipold in this offense. And so, I think Cincinnati honestly might be the biggest swing game because if they do get that momentum rolling early, Cincinnati we like is a decent team. So if they could start 4-1, 5-0, if they could find a way to beat Missouri, I mean, that's going to be a tough ask on the road, but it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen. Suddenly I think that starts to get really fun, and maybe it starts to feel like 2007, 2008 for Jayhawk fans all over again.